Happy All Saints' Day. This is a day to celebrate saints of all religions, all time, and also to celebrate our own spiritual growth, because becoming saints is the destiny for each and every one of us. We will find God. That is what is written for us. I was delighted last night to have some of the children come over for Halloween and do trick-or-treat. And as I was looking particularly at the beautiful little vampire girl who had the teeth in, and was going, roar, just so cute. I was thinking, how can God not love us? He sees each one of us as a newborn baby, as an adult, as an old person, as the deathless soul. He sees all of it. To him, it's just that dear, dear child. It also reminds me of something that St. Teresa of Avila said, which I have pondered on, and maybe you'll enjoy meditating on this too. She said, our horns get locked with desires, but don't feel too badly about it. She said, to God, all those desires are really innocent. That's what the compassion in his eyes tell me. So think about that. Think about how our hearts get locked up with desire, with fear, with all kinds of emotions. To God, it's all innocent, because he's so far above that. He's watching a vast play. He's seeing all of the ins and outs and intricacies of a vast tapestry. That's why you've read the books of people who have had near-death experiences, and no matter what is happening for them, no matter how gripping the drama, they meet this being of light who takes it all very lightly. It's not such a heavy thing. Everything can be fixed. Everything can be resolved. Everything is fine. As Anandamoy Ma said, whatever happens, it's okay. So if we have that attitude, if we can adopt that attitude, we are with God already. That is our destiny, to have that consciousness all the time. Naturally, it reminds me of a joke. This is a joke that Swami used to tell. Love this joke. So, a Jewish person was talking to a Catholic, and he said to the Catholic, so, in your religion, how do you advance? What is, if you're very much into religion, what can you become? And the Catholic said, well, you can become a priest. And the Jewish man said, well, is that it? He said, well, if you advance, you can become a bishop. And the Jewish man said, oh, so that's it then, a bishop? He said, well, you can become a cardinal. And the Jewish man said, and that's the end of it then. You become a cardinal. Well, you could become pope. And the Jewish man said, okay. And the Catholic got kind of upset. And he said, well, what do you want, Jesus Christ? And the Jewish man said, why not? One of our boys made it. So Each one of us will make it. Remember how Swami would tell us, the great ones, Jesus and Krishna, all the saints, they didn't come here to earth to lord it over us and say, you poor thing, you'll never reach my height. No, they came to show us what we can become. Don't the scriptures say, Jesus said, that ye are gods? We're just sleeping gods. We have to wake up. I found this little quotation that someone gave me years ago, and I've always loved it. I'll share it with you. Why were the saints saints? Because they were cheerful when it was difficult to be cheerful. Because they were patient when it was difficult to be patient. And because they pushed on when they really wanted to stand still. And they kept silent when they wanted to talk. And were agreeable when they wanted to be disagreeable. That was all. It was quite simple and always will be. We have to, as the reading today said, offer ourselves more and more completely. There's no point in holding anything back anyway. God sees it all, He hears it all, He knows everything in your heart. It's impossible to hide from Him. And so, get into it. Go ahead, open wide. Open the door of your heart, open wide for Him. Let Him come in, share every thought, share every fear, every sorrow, every feeling. And as the reading said too, clarify your feelings. What is it that really is motivating you? You know, Yogananda made such a point of not gossiping, and I've often wondered why this. You know, he put it right up there with treachery, one of the great sins of life. And I think it's because when we talk about other people, we're affirming separateness, that they are different from me, that I am different from them. And it reinforces that idea of separateness when truly we are all expressions of God. Seeing those little children last night made me think about how our souls are one, but we come into this form, we have this human experience, and we put on these personalities, dark skin, white skin, red skin. We just take on all these little self-identifications. But what God is asking us to do is to relinquish all of that. We sang this song, "Oh God Beautiful," which was originally written by Guru Nanak in India. And one of the main tenets of his Sikh religion that he founded after having a vision of God is the simple truth of the Bhagavad Gita, which is that God alone is the doer in every action, in everything, every thought that we think, and every feeling that we have, and every breath that we take. It is really God doing that. And we have to realize that. That's our only job on earth. We think we have all these other jobs, but we don't. That's our real job. So, going back to this idea of gossip, I think what holds us back a lot from that oneness of God and having that consciousness of oneness is that idea of separateness. People do bad things. They hurt us, they disappoint us, they make fun of us, they do all sorts of things that we don't like and we can't control. And so I thought I would just end my portion of the talk today by reading something written by a modern saint, by Mother Teresa. And this is a good way to think about people. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway.
This topic reminds me of a spiritual concept that applies throughout religion, which is that the masters come to take subtle and nuanced truth and bring it to a level that we can relate to, a level that we can appreciate and understand and do something with. And so, in reference to this title, I thought, if we were to translate this into kind of modern parlance, we might say, why tell your kids anything when they already know everything? Or you could fill in the blank with your mother or your father who's elderly and clearly knows everything. Why give your dad anything when he already has everything? Come Father's Day, and you think about that tie when he already has a closet full of them. So often we sort of sideline God into a region that doesn't apply somehow. And I've been thinking a lot over this weekend and over these last days because a dear friend of ours passed just a few days ago. We had the astral ascension ceremony on Friday evening, and because it different things, and I appreciated the comments that people made. Different ones knew him in different ways. He used to do this for me. He helped me in this way. He was kind. He was very thorough. He was very giving and serviceful in these various ways. And all of these things are true and valid. But I want to go deeper still, because we tend to see in life what we look for. Why does a saint perceive God everywhere? Because a saint is looking for God everywhere. We have to train ourselves to look for that. So there's nothing wrong with seeing the goodness that a person like John exhibited or manifested or performed in this world. That's a beautiful thing. But there's something deeper still, which is there is a spark of God that lived in his life. And so you know, even I get a little uncomfortable when I say Saint John, because there can be this tendency to think, oh, well, so what made him so good that he got into the club of saints? You know, did he do miracles? Did anybody get raised from the dead? You know, blah, blah, blah. We sort of put these criteria around it. But that soul is a saint, and your soul is a saint also. And we have to realize that. We have to aspire to it. We have to want it. We have to look for it. It's not enough to just affirm it. We have to accept it. This affirmation reading, I would like to highlight and recommend. This one hit with sledgehammer force, I would say. There is a depth. I'm going to just read this paragraph because it is profound and worth living. Acceptance comes from knowing that reality lies within ourselves. Put that on your mirror or your refrigerator or your computer screen or cell phone or whatever. Reality lives within ourselves, and that all else is a dream. Acceptance of that one reality makes everything else acceptable. Instead of learning to come to grips with 1,000 individual challenges, therefore, make the supreme effort to accept God unconditionally into your heart. Accept all that comes in life as coming from His hands, and He will give you what is best for you. So often we think we can bargain a better deal in life than what God has given us. You know, the if-onlys and the what-ifs, that sort of thing. That acceptance is the acceptance of a child. A child accepts reality. I was thinking of a question that I've never heard a child ask, which is, why does it get dark earlier today than it did yesterday? Or why in the wintertime, why is it cold, and when is it going to be warm again? I mean, I grew up in the Chicago area, and winter was, you know, they used to say there were only two seasons. There was winter and there was construction. You know, that was one way of looking at it in the Chicago area. But I loved winter. I thought winter was great, and it never occurred to me to ask, when is it going to be warm again? Because I was quite happy with it being cold. It was perfectly fine if it snowed. In fact, I looked forward to that first day. I called it parachute day, when the little snowflakes would come falling down, and it was very mesmerizing and very beautiful. But that ability to just accept what it is, rather than kind of conditioning it or judging it or boxing it or assigning it a value in one way or another, that is part of what it takes to be a saint. That little story, I suppose many of us have heard, little apocryphal story, I suppose, of a child at the seashore and noting that a storm had washed up all these little starfish onto the shore, to the degree that they were not going to go back into the water, and as the sun came out and it was very hot, they would die. And so there's a beach full of these things. So what does the little child do? Picks one or two up, brings them to the water, comes back, picks up another. Well, so mommy or daddy, you know, well-intentioned adult person, whatever category they may fit into, comes along and says, very well-meaningly to the child, little one, why do you do this? Oh, because they'll die. But surely you can see that you could never carry all of them. What difference does it make? And with perfect clarity, the child says, I think it makes a lot of difference to the ones that I put back in the water. we have to do what we can do in this world without fear that we can't do enough or that we can't do it all. I don't know if you ever tuned into this or remember the time when you tuned into this. I know for me it probably came a decade ago, or more than a decade ago probably. The internet had grown to the point where I realized that I was never, ever, ever going to be able to tune into even the tiniest fraction of it. There's no end to it. All the different things you could ask or want to tune into. I looked up All Saints Day today, and the references go on forever. And that's just one little tiny topic. You can go into endless nuance, endless words, endless languages to learn, etc., etc., etc. The infinity of it all can be overwhelming. I suppose India also taught us that the overwhelmingness of this world is just something to accept. You just accept that there's more to it than you can ever absorb with the little cup of your mind. But with the ocean of your heart, you can absorb infinity as long as it's open wide. And that's the part that Nirmala was pointing out about. We have to open our hearts. Today in the purification ceremony, it struck me, we say the words, the Master says, open your heart to me, and I will enter and take charge of your life. We could flip the first part of that around, because we could say, God, I want to enter your heart. God's heart is always wide open. It's our hearts that, we may crack the door open, a couple inches here, and, maybe it creaks a little as we try to open it a little bit more, but we tend to be a little bit afraid that God will come in. In the affirmation, the prayer was saying, shine your light into all the recesses of my heart, lest there be some little part where I haven't accepted your presence. And we have to open that wide, and that takes patience, it takes willingness, it takes trust that God's presence coming into our hearts will bring joy and bring light and bring peace. But on this day, on this All Saints' Day, let us worship the saints not just as icons in history who represent an ideal that we aspire to. Let us also embrace them as companions along the path, because they walk the path as well. Just as the little joke Nirmala was telling, one of our boys did it. Well, yeah, in fact. And in our Western tradition, for some reason, Christ is so other, so beyond, that we tend to think, oh, well, I don't know, I'll stick with the steps that are right in front of me. But Christ is walking those steps right with us. He's not just out there in the distance. That phrase that is so often used to divide, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. Think of that as a highway. That's a highway through Christ. He's saying, I am the way. That's like now, today. It's not way off in the distance. He's not saying, I'm so far away you'll never get to me. He's saying, come with me and be in the infinite kingdom. That kingdom is ours for eternity, but it's mainly ours now. And that's what we have to embrace in this life. Namaste.